Hello, I'm Jacinta. Welcome back to my channel, Past That Plant. Today I'm going to go through the full timeline of my Fiddle Leaf Fig Bambino water propagation, and I'm also going to share my tips and tricks for a successful Ficus Lyrata Bambino propagation. I took these cuttings in December, which is mid-summer in Australia, and you can probably tell by my attire it is no longer summer. It has finally cooled down and is 15 degrees currently, which is about 60 Fahrenheit. So I took these cuttings mid-summer. Let's have a look at how they grew over the past 3 months. She's just ugly, so let's chop her right back so she grows beautiful and bushy like this side has. To start with, I'm going to take one large cutting and I'm going to cut it all the way back to where this cutting was so they're even. Once I've taken the large cutting off, I will decide if I'm going to do the other side and then how many propagations I'm going to make out of the one stem. So let's do that. So here we go with the first cut. So this cutting is obviously massive, and if I tried to propagate it, it would likely just rot in the water. One of the reasons why is because there is so much foliage on this cutting, and all this foliage takes up a lot of energy and nutrients. So the plant will try and keep the leaves alive instead of focusing on growing new roots. So you only really want 2 or 3 leaves per cutting. To start with, I will take off the leaves that I don't want to keep, including this yellowing one. And there's a tiny one here which never grew properly, so I'll get rid of that as well. I'm going to pull away the little leaf sheets. I know I said 2 or 3, but we've got 4. That should be fine. New growths happening from where I had previously chopped it. So I've got 3 sections which I'm going to put in water and propagate. But before I do that, I'm just going to let them callus a little bit. So you can see the stems are quite wet and raw, and you want those a little bit dry before you put them in water, and that helps stop them from rotting. You only need to leave them a few hours or overnight, and that's enough for them to form a little callus and protect themselves. So I've cut off some of the extra foliage. I probably need to cut more. No, I will. Get rid of these leaves as well. May feel sad cutting off some leaves, especially if they look healthy, but if you leave them on, you may lose the whole cutting, so then you're losing the leaves anyways. So may as well chop them off before the plant starts to suffer. Let this one callus as well. Now this pot looks way too big for this plant, but we know there's 2 stumps in there which will hopefully grow quite quickly. So you can see they're both quite wet and raw. You can definitely do gloves whilst you're doing this because the sap can irritate your skin, make it a little bit itchy, but I really just get in there and go for it, but you don't have to. Hello, it's the next day and my cuttings have calloused, so let's put them in the water. So you can see that the ends are now dry or calloused. They are no longer wet and raw. This really helps to prevent rot in the stem when you water propagate. So my 4 propagation vessels, I'm just going to fill each one with water. Now I don't usually do this, but I thought it would be interesting to test some rooting hormone. So I'm going to dip 2 of my cuttings into the hormone, and I'm not going to dip the other 2, and we can see if it makes a difference in how quickly they root. Going to dip one that I'm putting in colored glass, and also one which I'm going to put in clear, just so we know that that's not a factor. And then these 2 cuttings I'm just going to pop straight into water. Now let's pop them to my summy. Exactly 4 weeks ago, I chopped and propped my Ficus Lyrata Bambino. Again, let's see how it's going. This is the mother plant, which I took the cuttings from. This growth here is when I took the cuttings the year before. And this is my most recent stem cuttings. It has been 4 weeks and there's so many new branches growing, which is great. These aren't going to be individual leaves, they will be branches. You can see how this side has grown branches, so it'll be nice and full when they come in fully. Did anyone play Nintendo growing up or no? I don't know why, I think it's the colour and also the sparkiness, but these remind me of Bowser. Let me know if you think the same. Now let's have a look at the cuttings. If you watched the original video, you would have seen that I dipped 2 of the cuttings in a rooting hormone and 2 I didn't. I took 4 cuttings. First, I'll show you the 2 cuttings that I dipped in the rooting hormone. I like to call this stage the popcorn stage when you've got these little white growths, but this one actually has 2 little roots as well growing. I haven't changed the water over the past 4 weeks. I have just been topping it up as it's gotten low. This is the second cutting that I dipped in the rooting hormone. I'm going to need to put this in a bigger vessel. You can see this one is at the popcorn stage as well, but it is quite high up, which means it's going to root from up here, not down here, which is interesting. I might put this one in a bigger vessel. Again, I haven't changed the water. I have been topping it up, but it needs more. These are the 2 I didn't dip in the rooting hormone. Again, we have the popcorn stage, but no roots. And lastly, another popcorn stage and no roots. This is what I would expect to see after the 4 weeks. This is a little popcorny stage. Of the 2 that I dipped in rooting hormone, 1 has rooted, 1 is going to but hasn't yet, so that is not a definitive reason why those rooted. The other 2 haven't, but they're going to. None have rotted, which is great. I'll check back in another few weeks to see how both the mother plant and the babies are growing. In the meantime, I am going to put this one in a bigger vessel because it has the longest stem and top up the rest with some fresh water. I'm going to add the existing water into the vessel so we don't lose all that good rooting hormone. I did pour some of the existing water into this one. It was quite hot though, so I gave up. Just done it to the top of that kind of popcorny stage. These 3, I will just top them up as well. And that is it. I'm going to pop them back in the same spot they were in and we'll check in again soon. Hello, it has been exactly 6 weeks since I chopped and propped my Fiddle Leaf Fig Bambino, or the Ficus Lyrata Bambino. Let's have a look at how my propagations are growing and also how the mother plant is looking since I cut off the tops. First up, the mother plant. These are the two stems which I took the cuttings from. You can see both of the stems are branching beautifully and have lots of new growth. Just like with this side, which I did over a year ago, you can see there's lots of branches growing, not just single leaves. Super cute and will be nice and bushy in no time. Now the cuttings. If you watched the original, you would know that I took 4 cuttings and they are all rooting in water to varying degrees. These 2 I dipped in a rooting hormone, and these 2 I didn't. The ones that I didn't dip in any rooting hormone are still at the popcorn stage of growth. So that's that little white fuzzy growths you can see there will turn into roots. See this one as well. So those are both slowly growing. Just covered in fluff though. I obviously need to dust. And then these 2 are the ones I did dip in a rooting hormone. So you can see not much difference on this one. Again, you can see there is roots that are slowly going to grow, but nothing spectacular. But it's not very different to the ones which I didn't dip in rooting hormone. Then this one has gone absolutely gangbusters. This one I'm worried I'm going to break the roots. Oh my gosh. So this one has obviously been very happy. Incredible roots growing. You could almost plant this one already. So just 6 weeks of growth. I'm not going to plant it though. I'm going to let it continue to grow. Very cool though. I am going to pop it into a larger vessel because I barely got this one out of here without breaking the roots. Let's see if this one fits better. Even that one. I'm going to go up to this one, which has a nice wide opening. Okay, perfect. This one can live in here now, so it's got plenty of space for the roots to continue to grow. I am just going to pour that same water into this new propagation vessel and add some fresh water. I'm also going to add some fresh water to these other ones as well, but not change the water. I would only change it completely if something was going wrong, or if there was a lot of algae growth, or if I thought one of the plants was rotting, which isn't the case. So just add a little bit of fresh water, which adds in fresh oxygen. Pushing a little bit up against the glass there, but I think it should be okay. You do want a little bit of space at the base of your vessel, so there is plenty of room for those roots to grow. You also don't want your foliage sitting in the water, because then it may cause issues like rot and fall off as well. So these have all been growing in the same spot of my home. I took them at the same time. Wildly different results. Obviously the one with the rooting hormone is doing well, but then again this one isn't doing so well. This one also has the most foliage, so that's interesting, because usually the less leaves equals roots faster. But she really just said, I'm doing my own thing, and we love that for her. And of course the mother plant loves it as well. Okay, bye. Can check in on my Fiddle Leaf Fig Bambino, the Ficus Lyrata cuttings. I propagated this one in December. It's now February. She's growing it so well. I did take a few cuttings and they have varying success. So this one hasn't rooted at all, but it is growing to new branches. The mother plant I took the cuttings from is obviously doing it so well. It's been 2 months, not even 10 weeks. This is your sign to cut your plants. Now you're all caught up, let's go through what they look like today. First, we have the mother plant. She is looking so gorgeous and full, and has grown better than I could have imagined. This tall foliage here is from the first time I propagated this plant, and the shorter bush here at the front is from my December cuttings. It is looking so beautiful and full, a real change from the leggy mess that she was before. These two stems are from where I took the latest cuttings. You can really see that instead of just pushing out new leaves or another single leader stem, the plant has really bushed out now. All these new growth points will continue to grow into new branches, just as this original one has. Chopping at your plants is such a great way to help them bush out more. It's important to keep in mind that even if your propagations fail, that the mother plant does benefit from a good chop and prop. Now onto the cuttings. So I originally had 4 cuttings. 3 of them have rooted, 1 hasn't. I only have 3 cuttings left, 2 which rooted and 1 which didn't. The other cutting which rooted I did give away. I do kind of regret giving that cutting away, only because I can't show you what it looks like, but I had a family member in town and I wanted to give it to them, so it is what it is. But here is the cutting which rooted best. As you can tell, this cutting is well and truly ready to be transferred to a potting mix. I can either pot up this cutting on its own, like I did with the previous one, or I could plant it back with the mother plant here. But if I plant it in this one, I fear that it may grow a bit funny, as there will be more competition for light, as she's growing so beautiful and bushy. So as it is autumn, I should probably pot her up soon, but that's not what this video is about. These are the other 2 cuttings that I took. This cutting is rooting well, not as beautifully as this one, but they've both rooted and they both have first and secondary roots, which means they are ready to pot up. These 2 are also the 2 which I dipped in the rooting hormone. This is the 4th cutting, which has not rooted and hasn't done much of anything, to be honest. I am a little bit worried that it has rotted, because you can see that this leaf has some browning to it, which can be a sign of root rot. It can also be a sign of sunburn, so I can't really be sure at this stage. It doesn't smell funky and the stem is still firm, which makes me think there isn't any rot and she's just taking her sweet time. There is some of the kind of popcorn callusing down the bottom, which is usually the first signs of roots. Usually these little white bumps or calluses will turn into nodes and then roots. So we'll see what happens there. If you can see, although she hasn't rooted, there is a little tiny bit of new growth coming, so I'm not going to give up on her yet, but she's definitely taking her time. That's okay, we don't want to rush her. As you would know already if you follow my channel, the goal here is not to root and plant as many cuttings as possible. I just really enjoy the process of propagating. I love water propagations. I love pottering around with the houseplants, so I'm happy to let her do her own thing. But if your goal is to make as many propagations as possible in the shortest amount of time, that would be a disappointment for you. For me, it's all part of learning. So in the past 3 months, we have technically grown 2 new plants, which we could pot up, and the mother plant looks absolutely stunning. I'm really loving her again. This, of course, isn't the first time I have chopped and propped a fiddle leaf fig. As I mentioned, this side I have already propagated, which gave me the confidence to cut the other 2 stems, as it grew back so beautifully. This cutting, which I have now potted up, was the cutting I took originally. She's now her own beautiful little plant. So that's what this one could look like if I potted her up. I could even plant these 2 together. Let me know if you think I should pot her up on her own or pot her up with this previous cutting. So this is the Ficus Lyrata Bambino, which is the dwarf version of the full Fiddle Leaf Fig, or the Ficus Lyrata. This big tree here is the first Fiddle Leaf Fig that I ever owned. I've had it for about 5 years now. It is also the first one I propagated, and this is what her baby looks like now. I also have a few other Fiddle Leaf Fig cuttings in hydro. At this point, it has gone well beyond a water propagation and is now just a full-time hydro plant. One thing to note is this one has been in water for years now, and there is no algae growth, even though I do not change the water, compared to my latest cutting, which does in fact have some algae growth on it. You can see the green there. So these roots are algae free and these have a little bit. And the reason for that is because this one is in amber glass and this one is clear glass. I have spoken about this on my channel before, but putting your border propagations in amber glass, colored glass, ceramic really helps to stop algae growth. It is because the UV cannot get into the water and roots as easily, so algae is not going to thrive. Can mean that the rooting process is a little bit slower, but again, that's fine with me. There are a few factors which will affect how quickly your water propagations will root. The first is when you take your cuttings. If you take your cuttings in spring or summer, you should start to see those little popcorn calluses within 1 to 2 weeks. You'll then start to see roots in 4 to 6 weeks, and they will generally be ready to put up within 3 months. If you take the cuttings in the cooler months, you are looking at a much longer time frame. The first time I propagated the Fiddle Leaf Fig with this big mama, I did in June. So of course it can be done, but it took months for the cutting to root, and I thought it had just died, but we did get there eventually. Which is why I haven't lost faith in this one little stem that's not doing anything yet. Regrowth on the mother plant will also be much faster. Again, when I originally propagated this big gal, it took quite a while for branches to start to grow again at the cutting site, whereas this one, as you would have just seen in my timeline, started to have little branching growths within a few weeks. Because the ones which rooted the best did have the rooting hormone, you may think that that is essential, but that is the first time I did use a rooting hormone on my Fiddle Leaf Fig propagations. For the previous 3 that I took, I didn't use rooting hormone at all, and they've all rooted beautifully. So don't feel like you have to go and buy some if that's not what you want to do. As for the actual cuttings, I will only completely change the water if there is a lot of algae growth, if all the water is green. If there is a funky smell coming from your propagations, as this is a sign of rot, so if it smells like sulfur or anything else which is bad, change the water and possibly check your cuttings. But besides that, I just top it up with fresh water. My previous cutting needs the water. So I top up the cuttings with fresh water. And once they have started to root, I just add a little bit of plant food. So I'll just add a dropper. Not a dropper, a drop in there. Again, this isn't essential, but I do like to add some nutrients in, especially when I'm topping up that water, and I'll add that once a month. This is the same as how I fertilize a lot of my houseplants. I'll add a little bit of liquid plant food monthly, again in the warmer months and less in the cooler. Sometimes when you take a water propagation, you will get a bit of a weird slimy sac forming at the base of the cutting. If you've got that little boogery sac, it can be a sign that there is not enough oxygen in the water, so it means you either need a bigger vessel to top it up with fresh water, or you can change it completely and give the cutting a little bit of a wash. Besides that, they will do well in a humid and sunny spot. If you have natural sunlight in your bathroom, this can be a great spot for cuttings. I don't recommend putting them on the window if you are propagating in clear glass, because you will have a lot of algae growth with the sunlight hitting the roots and water. I don't know if you can tell on camera, but I'm quite petite. I'm not the tallest gal. I stand at about 5'2". So it may not seem like this Fiddle Leaf Fig is as tall as she is, but I think it's actually going to touch the ceiling now. It is leaning over a little bit, but I think if I stand her up, she's going to hit the ceiling. She's officially touched the roof. Let me know if I should chop her again or let her continue to grow on an angle. For general Fiddle Leaf Fig care, I water mine every 2 or so weeks. I really recommend letting them dry out in between watering, or you can end up with edema, root rot, or fallen leaves. They do like a very bright spot with direct sunlight. It doesn't have to be the full day, but the brighter the better. I feed mine monthly with the liquid plant food, which I mix in when I water it. These big beautiful leaves are real dust magnets. So I recommend you going with the big cloth and warm water or neem oil once a month to give them a clean and get all the dust off them. It's also a good chance to check for pests. I also mist mine often. I don't want to hear the misting slander. It's not for humidity. It is to replicate morning dew. It helps stop your plants from going brown and crispy. It also deters some pests like spider mites, mealybugs, thrips, which like the dry environment. So keep it a little bit wet so they don't get in there. They are quite sturdy plants. It's a big tree. It's not made of glass. Whenever I move it in videos, I get comments from people saying, you're going to lose all the leaves now because you've touched it. If that is happening with your Fiddle Leaf Fig, something is wrong. You should be able to move it. You should be able to have it in a window where it's getting some airflow. This one, I've repotted it and I use half indoor potting mix and half an aeroid mix. I often put it in the rain or into the shower to clean the leaves. I have dropped it clean on its side. Yes, it's on video. I'll insert it here. And she's grown beautifully. So I think that treat them mean, keep them keen is applicable for the Fiddle Leaf Fig and most of your houseplants. But I think that's it for the Fiddle Leaf Fig full propagation timeline, care, and just some general ramblings. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know if you want to learn how to propagate any others. On my channel I have lots of previous propagation videos of the Fiddle Leaf Fig, also the Philodendron Pink Princess, Philodendron White Princess, the Pilea peperomioides, Begonia maculata, who is now so beautiful and flowering. I have the Ficus elastica or rubber plant propagation, which is the same method. Lots of pothos examples, Scindapsus monstera. It's a propagation delight. So that's it from me for today. Thanks for watching and leave any comments or questions below. Okay, bye. So to start with, I'm going to take one large cutting. I'm going to cut it back all the way to where the previous, you can see that. I'm also going to share my tips and tricks for a successful you know what, forget it.